So our next reader, she told me she doesn't think that she can rock fur, which I guess, whatever. But as consolation, she told me that she did eat an entire cake while writing this next piece. Please welcome UNLV MFA star alumna Brittany Bronson.
Hello. So nice to see you all again. Thanks for having me back. This is a personal essay, and it's titled About Those Dish Sets. I have 3 sets of dishes in my cupboards. It's a bit much for a single woman in her 30s without children who lives alone. The first set I purchased shortly after my college graduation. Several of my friends got married that year, and they all received complete dish sets from various department store wedding registries. Buying those dishes was an act of defiance. I don't need to get married to have a dish set. As a set of 8, I've regularly used them all, not because I have friends over for dinner parties, something I often imagine doing in the home goods aisle, but rarely actually execute, but because my condo has no dishwasher and I'm notorious for letting dirty dishes pile up, which is a useful justification for having 3 sets. As I progressed through my 20s, acquiring my own kitchen items became increasingly significant. With 2 older siblings who got married at 21, their fully equipped kitchens came to represent what I deemed as an easy road. When I visited my older sister in Oregon and she cooked perfectly tender flank steak for my entire family in a meticulous fashion, while 7 months pregnant, her toddler nearby patiently assisting with the garnishes, I'd think, of course you can do this. You got all this shit for free. I, however, had to accumulate a stocked kitchen slowly, over time, in a pull myself up by my bootstraps fashion. For years, I used plates from my dish set as cutting boards, as lids for pots. My forearms owed hours of exercise to stirring cookie dough with a spatula instead of a $300 KitchenAid mixer. After breaking many a spatula from this emotionally charged stirring, I bought an electric hand mixer. So began my current obsession with purchasing surplus kitchen equipment. Although I am terrified to get married, I do aspire to one day put on my wedding invitations what I perceive to be a passive-aggressive yet feminist phrase. Please forgo bringing gifts. The couple has everything they need for their home. At no point in life will I ever have to ask someone for a wine decanter or a gravy boat, because although I have never used them, I already own both. I know high-end kitchen brands the way a fashionista knows designers. All Clad is my Louis Vuitton. Le Creuset, my Tory Burch. My second dish set is vintage china that belonged to my grandmother. Until I had the space, my dad stored it for me in his garage. Eventually, I had the room after buying a condo with an excessive amount of cabinets. It was almost as if the previous owners who did the remodel predicted their buyer would substitute her loneliness for an impractical number of kitchen items. For almost 3 years, the china has remained stacked in those cabinets, unused. My sister has my mother's china, but she uses hers every year when she hosts Thanksgiving. Each November, she texts me a picture of the table, set for 12, our mother's navy china contrasting beautifully with the golden chargers. Meanwhile, I surf home decor websites with a bottle of red wine, only to find myself placing a set of chargers in my online shopping cart. How many times have I stood at that ledge with my cursor hovering over the confirm order button? I've always managed to talk myself down and move them to the save for later tab. If I'm still unmarried at 40, will there be any greater satisfaction than buying those chargers? A set of plates to place beneath my other plates? I have come close to marriage. At 22, I looked at engagement rings with a boyfriend I dated seriously through college. In my late 20s, I dated a man for 4 years. The most recent man I dated was previously married, and after his divorce, he watched the documentary Minimalism, then stripped his life of household possessions and claimed to be moving to Mexico. It was a relief to know I wasn't the only person with strong marital associations to domestic items. My last set of dishes is the most extensive. It includes large plates, small plates, regular bowls, soup bowls, ramekins, and mugs. Multiply all of those items by 12, and you will better understand the capacity of my cabinets. They are the dishes my mother registered for when she married my father. It was her second marriage. Clearly, she did not have everything she needed for her home. I imagine my parents discussing whether they should register at all. Knowing my father, he would have preferred to direct the guests to forgo bringing gifts. Having never known my mother, I don't know what she said. Maybe registering for that dish set was her version of practicality. People will want to bring something, she may have argued. Or maybe it was some type of superstition, because before my mother walked down the aisle at her first wedding, she turned to my grandfather and said, "I think this is a mistake." He told her, "Everyone's already here. They would have to return their gifts." My mother divorced her first husband less than a year after their wedding. But even then, she wasn't free of him, because he was diagnosed with terminal cancer shortly after, and she remained an emotional support to him until he died. Then, a decade later, she was diagnosed with the same cancer. In the darkest moments of her sickness, she was overcome by guilt for causing that man's heartbreak. Ironically, dysfunctional divorces are my favorite subject for writing. I write these stories with dark humor and sensitivity and the goal of making them as hilarious and depressing as possible. You die of the same cancer that your disgruntled ex died of? That's a doozy. In my opinion, my mother's faithfulness to a man she never wanted to marry, but did because of the inconvenience of returning kitchen supplies, meant she earned that second marriage dish set. The tradition of handing down household items from one woman to the next is the product of my mother and grandmother's New England roots. The ritual happens ideally at the occasion of marriage. Because both of these women did not live to see me marry, my father eventually gave me an ultimatum: take the stuff, or I'll give it away. So I hauled 6 boxes of dishes out of state to a condo where I lived alone and for the most part already possessed a fully outfitted kitchen. As I unwrapped the crumpled newspaper protecting them, I saw the dates match the year my mother died. How many stories have we heard of widows and widowers arriving back after funeral services to homes full of their loved ones' things? These are the moments, amidst so much unclaimed stuff, that death often settles in. I don't remember it, but I was the one at 4 years old who helped my father clean out my mother's closet. I stuffed her coats and dresses into plastic bags. For my father, getting rid of her belongings was a crucial step toward healing. For me, it was making space for her dishes. Because my mother has always only been a collection of her surviving things. Maybe this is why I fill up my home with kitchen supplies instead of people. I do not have a husband or children, but I could successfully serve dinner to an orphanage. The dishes do then represent my loneliness and my aloneness. They are fragile, ceramic, the kind of dishes people register for when they are approaching 40, when they are doubtful that they will ever have children. I picture my mother in an aisle considering them, turning them over in her hands. She probably never let them accumulate in stacks before cleaning them. But I can't know for sure. Every thought of my mother is an act of my imagination. But those dishes are real. They're heavy. They fill up an entire cupboard. Thank you.